So this one says, over 400 years of transatlantic slave trade, then colonization, and today we have neo-colonialism and imperialism. Magatte Wade, I highly recommend one book for you, just one. Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Well, I'm familiar with that book, but Walter Rodney's and his message is wrong. In fact, he was a Marxist. And we all know that everywhere that Marxism has been tried, it bred nothing but poverty and misery. How many more millions of people are going to die for us to just be sitting there and be like, oh, it's just because it was not done right. We need to try to do it one more time right. In the meantime, millions of people are dying. So I just have no patience for Walter Rodney and his message. And another issue I have with him is that his fellow Marxists, they believe that investment is not the way to build prosperity. Well, how else do you build prosperity? I ask you, right? So while folks like him were out there complaining that investment doesn't build prosperity and in fact is exploitation, you have right across Lee Kuan Yew, the leader of Singapore, saying, and I quote him, "Come exploit us with your investments." He was meaning literally, bring your investment. I don't care that these people call it exploitation. They just don't understand how economics work. And indeed, he was right, because there's nothing exploitative about investment. And so he welcomed investments, direct foreign investment. He welcomed that if that's where it came from. And fast forward, this is how 60 plus years later, Singapore started out worse than many of our African nations. Look at Singapore. It actually today, it is richer than their colonizers, Great Britain, GDP per capita. You see, meanwhile, we're still here 60 plus years later, and people, African people, telling me that Marxism is the way to go, and that investment is not welcome for building prosperity. At this point, I just don't know what else to tell you. There's one thing I can try maybe, and it is, I invite you to read one book, just like you, one book only, and it is called Africa Unchained by George Ayittey, a Ghanaian economist. I absolutely love George. He was such a great critical, independent thinker who was thinking against the grains of his time. He did not go down this weird rabbit hole of, hey, we're going to be Marxist because everybody's a Marxist right now. That's the en vogue ideology, so I'm just going to go with it. Instead, he was like, this makes no sense. This ideology has nothing common with what I know our African traditions to be. He knows that everywhere in Africa you look, there are the markets. What is the market? The market is something that Marxists actually have a big problem with. So I would suggest that you read George Ayittey. I promise you, it's going to blow your mind. I used to think the same way, you know, about all of us. I used to think the same way that a Walter Rodney type person would think. I totally bought into all of that. And it kept me in a very, very dark and depressed place until I was able to read the likes of George Ayittey, and what he was bringing forward made so much more sense. And what I love about George's position and the work and the research that he's done is that he's showing us that actually entrepreneurship is part of the greater African tradition, whatever we want to call that. I know it's a big place, huge continent, but George, for his work, has shown that all over the continent, we were engaged in trade, the forces of trade, and that we had the free enterprise. And this ideology, as designed by the Marxists, there is nothing more counter to what it is that our people were practicing back in the days. George just opened my eyes to so much. And what I love the most about what I've learned from him is that it's something that really gives you your agency back. You're no longer just in this state of, oh, the world has done us wrong, everything is wrong, and we are still in it. No, it's like, darn it, there's something actually I can do about this. And that's pretty much what I think and I hope you might find in George's message, diametrically opposed to what the likes of Walter Rodney say and try to argument. So I invite you to read it and we can talk about it if you want. I can understand that probably you might have a lot of questions after you read it, but I'm here for it because I went through that journey myself. So I hope you get to George and that, yeah, we can have those conversations because I really think it's about time for us to have different conversations than this one. We really have to move on. I know that whenever that is being said about something like colonialism, our people tend to be angry. I think I understand why they tend to be angry, but I have to push through that anger. And so we can land on a place where we are, owners of our own destinies again. And just don't let the anger incapacitate us. That's not all there is out there. We say, yes, this is totally wrong. Nothing could ever make it right, for sure. But you and I cannot go back and fix any of that stuff. Can we do something about today and tomorrow? You betcha. And that's what I'm working on.